Dr. Ezra Suruma, thank you very much for agreeing to have this conversation with us about the important and topical issue of coffee.
Coffee is important
For
Uganda.
Exactly, and it's been so for so many years.
Yeah.
But just to give context, because a lot of the people who are listening to you are very young. And by very young, I mean most of them, the average age is like 35. So these are people who were born when the policy decisions that are currently being debated were being implemented or being debated to be implemented. And now we're dealing with the consequences. So just like a background, just take me through the work you've done in government, your history. Of course, we all know, I mean, the most well known is that you're a professor of economics.
Yes.
And that you taught at Makerere University.
And I taught in America for a long time.
Oh, okay. So do you want to just give us a background of that journey, as brief as it can be?
Yeah. After King's College Budo, I went to America, to New York City, to study a bachelor's degree.
Wow, okay.
In finance. And after finance, I did a master's at Fordham University in New York.
Yeah.
After that, I went for PhD at the University of Connecticut. And while I was at Connecticut, I got a job to come and lecture at Makerere,
Yes.
1973.
Okay.
During Amin's time,
Yes.
I came, I lectured. After 2 years, I went back to the US to finish the PhD. After finishing, I didn't come back. Times were too hard and everybody was running away.
Yes.
So I stayed until 79. When Amin was overthrown, I returned to Makerere
Yes.
as a senior lecturer. That's when the times were still difficult.
Yes.
That's when we formed the Uganda Patriotic Movement.
Actually, I'm quite interested in that part of your history. I've heard it being said in many places that between you and the late Joshua Mugenyi,
Yes.
you were discussing the third way. Just tell us what that was, and how did you arrive at these political discussions?
As an economist, I was not at all interested in politics.
Right.
I just came to teach economics. That's what I was
That's
doing.
all you wanted to do.
One day, as I was going to the guest house where I was staying after returning from the US, I didn't have a residence yet.
Yes.
A friend of mine in economics department said, there is a lecture at the lower lecture hall. Aren't you going? I said, no, I'm not going.
Yes.
Then when I reached the guest house, I was bored.
Okay.
I said, why don't I just go
Okay.
and see what they are saying? I found a lecture hall packed to the full. I just managed to get a seat in front,
Okay.
squeezed, and this young man had the whole audience
Yes.
glued to. Everybody was
Every
just
word he
listening.
was.
Yes. That's what Joshua Mugenyi.
Wow.
He was a lecturer in political science. We're in the same faculty. And this is when he was talking about the need for a third force.
Wow.
That we should go from parties that are for tribes, like Kawakayaka, or for religion,
Yes.
like DP and UPC, and go make a third force that combines everybody
Yes.
into one Ugandan party.
Party.
I said, this makes sense.
Yeah. So that captured your political
That captured
imagination.
my imagination. Then a few weeks later, Professor Mushanga said another lecture on campus,
Yes.
if intelligent people refuse to join politics,
Yes.
they must accept to be ruled by fools. I said, really?
Right. Yes.
That really cut me to the heart.
Yeah.
I said, so this is what is going to happen. I said,
Yes.
let me join for what is worse.
Yes.
So I joined Joshua. We formed Uganda National Movement.
Yes.
And a few months later, he told me that Mr. Museveni wanted to meet with us.
Okay.
We went. We found in his house Rugundas, the Wakakokos, so many, all the prominent politicians.
Yes.
And we said we formed the Ugandan Salis and so on. We formed the Uganda Patriotic Movement, UPM.
Yes.
We started campaigning. I went to Kabale and the Reverend pulled me aside. Said, "What are you doing with these children? You are an adult."
Oh my.
This is a party for children.
Hey.
Kept quiet,
Yes.
maintained my interest. Soon we got one person who went through the 1980 elections,
Yes.
December 1980.
Yes.
And I said, now I'm going back to economics.
Yes. That was
Going back.
Dr. Chionga.
No, yeah, Dr. Young is one who went through.
Yes.
He was the only one. I went back to teaching. In February, the soldiers came for me.
Really?
Really, in Mitchell Hall.
Wow.
They came. They first went for Joshua.
Okay.
They told them, they asked, where is Joshua? Where is Mujenyi? They showed them Mujenyi flats. They went and started breaking down the flats, the doors.
Looking for Mujenyi.
Looking for Mujenyi. That gave him time to escape.
Yes.
Then they came for me. And the voice told them that I was not there. I heard the voice saying, he's not there. He has gone to the office.
Really?
Really. But what is interesting, that they obeyed that voice. Because I was standing there, inside the door, waiting for them to break it down.
Somebody just told them he's not there.
He's not there, he has gone to the office.
This was somebody outside your flat?
Yes, somebody outside in the hallway. I heard somebody.
Some just said.
A voice. I heard a voice.
Saying he's not there.
He's not there, he has gone to the office.
So they left.
They left. And went to look for me in the office and they didn't find me.
And that
night,
bought you time to escape.
Yes.
So how did you leave?
I don't know.
It's now 50 years, so
It's now
40 years,
50
so we
years.
can talk about these things freely.
Yeah, I remember dressing up in a dress. I don't know how I happened to find a dress that night, and
Wow.
I found my way out. And shortly after that, I was able to walk to Rwanda.
Oh,
Then I found my way to Nairobi. I found my way to Germany, and I found my way back
to the US.
to US. Started teaching until 1986.
Yes.
Actually, yeah, 86 I was able to come back. 85, December, I was able to come back and see my parents,
You came through Rwanda.
Rwanda, and yeah, and the rest of the story is,
As they say, history.
yeah.
One of the most interesting and intense economic policy times
Yes.
was the period between 1986 and really 1990.
Yes.
There was a lot of intellectual engagement around the question of economic policy direction. So when you return when you joined government in 1986, what was your position?
Actually, I joined government, at the Minister of Finance, the new Minister of Finance, 1986.
Yes.
Honorable Chionga.
No, not
When he
Professor.
No, the one who succeeded him.
Oh, so you joined the Ministry of Finance with Dr. Crispus
I
Chionga.
didn't join the Minister of Finance, but he's the one who called me and asked me if I could come back.
Okay.
I was teaching in Maryland,
Yes.
USA,
Yes.
and he said, can you come back
Yes.
and join the central bank? I said, fine. So I actually came back in February 1987,
Okay.
both as a director of research and as his advisor. So
Okay.
that was my role, and I continued as director of research until 1990. When I became deputy governor in 1993, I joined Uganda Commercial Bank as chairman managing director.
Yeah.
Turned it around, then I was fired. Left, started doing my own business.
Yes.
Then
When were you chairman of Uganda Airlines?
same time.
Same time.
Yeah.
So, just when you look back now, and the reason I'm having this conversation with you is that there are two big policy plank discussions that have come back again. There is the question of rationalization of government agencies, and on the grounds that, you know, there's so much money, duplication of services and so on, something that came up in 2016. But there is also the debate about the regulation and management of coffee and the future of the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Talk to me about some of the debates that happened, the big debates that happened between 86 and 90, because that was the time when first we had the question of a self-sustaining economy, backward and forward linkages, and then so one of the big initiatives at that time was barter trade and got a lot of government control or government ownership of big departments. How did we move from that to what has been referred to as either privatization or liberalization? What was the thinking and what drove us into that, and then the relationship with IMF and World Bank? Yes.
That's a lot.
That's why you're a professor. So. Yes. But let's start with what was the situation that existed in 86 and up to say 88 with all of the economy particularly? Yeah.
Fundamentally, the economy had broken down. And by that I mean that the shops were empty.
Yes.
You couldn't, if you wanted to buy soap, you wouldn't be able to find it.
No.
You are lucky, someone will have to tell you there is somewhere in Wandega.
Someone has some sugar.
Soap, or someone has some sugar, or someone has some beer.
Yes.
And then you do find your way there.
Yes.
Most people with the officers just put their coats on the chair and go to look for
what
money.
We
call to look for the line.
chasing a line.
Chasing a line.
As it was called.
Whatever you could find, you could resell it
Yes.
at 10 times the price.
The most desperate one actually was those who had no lines to chase sold government stationery, including government records, for wrapping of food.
So I keep saying everybody had money,
Yes.
but there was nothing to buy.
And that's true.
There's a huge quantity of money supply. We're carrying it in bags,
Yes.
but things were nowhere to be found.
It wasn't a case of too much money chasing too few goods. It was too much money chasing no goods at all.
Virtually.
Yes.
And so monetary reform
Yes.
was compulsory, was absolutely necessary.
Yes.
And so one of the first things to be done in 87 was to remove 3 zeros.
3 or 2? There were 2.
I don't know.
2 plus 30%. I remember
Minus
that.
30%.
So yeah, so it was first remove 2 zeros, then minus 30%. Yeah, that was, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if it's 2 or 3 zeros, but zeros were removed. And then everybody had less money.
Yes.
I think we printed new money.
Yes, I remember. New notes which were smaller. I hadn't seen a coin in many years. Coins arrived.
Before that, I remember inflation being over 200%.
Yes.
Around that time. Now inflation came down to about 14%, which was good progress. We still had shortages of basic needs, like buying medicine. You needed to go to somebody's house to find, like I needed to buy medicine for blood pressure. I would go to Ruzira, there was somebody's house who sold that medicine. There was no pharmacy to go to and buy medicine.
Yes.
Just trying to illustrate how difficult the situation was. Petrol, no petrol.
There was nothing.
You move around, you're looking for petrol, you say, oh, there is one day there is a station which you reach there, they say it's finished. Or you stay in line for 30 minutes, or then they say petrol is finished.
I remember in Kaval in December 1987, there was actually no fuel, completely. So we had to walk home. That meant walking from Kavale to Kanungu through shortcuts, not the main road. It was quite painful.
That's a long and mountains.
Exactly.
Oh.
So at that time, what role, how was the country earning an income, and what role was coffee playing?
Now that's now the question. That's the issue.
Yes.
The, question, the main problem, one of the major sources of not having goods in shops was not having foreign exchange.
To import the goods.
To import the goods.
Yes.
To import salt, to import soap, to import raw materials for soap. So one of the first actions that we did in 1987 was to get balance of payment support loan from the World Bank,
Right.
$100 million.
In order for you to have sufficient foreign currency reserves
Exactly.
to pay for imports.
Pay for imports. In fact, now, quickly we come to learn that the money comes with conditions. It's not just here it is a loan.
Pay it back when you're
in
ready.
30 years, 40 years, that was called concessional loans. At 1% interest, you pay back in 30 years.
Yes.
The grace period, I don't know how many years. But these are the conditions.
Right.
One, you must privatize your banks. Two, you must remove price controls. Because at that time we had many price controls.
Yes.
Three, you must remove fixed exchange rate. And so on.
Yeah.
Conditions.
Yes.
So now
Before they can even disburse.
before you can disburse, or they disburse a little at the beginning, they disburse, they call tranches. They give you 20 million, but before you can get another 20 million,
You have done
must have
certain
done
reforms.
1, 2, 3.
Yes.
If you haven't done it,
They
the
don't
money
give you.
They don't get. So now we started learning new language, conditionality.
Conditionalities, yes.
Conditionality became conditionality.
Yes.
And that's where privatization came in.
Yes.
Now, this was a time when Reagan, President Reagan,
Yes, was
the president of the United States.
yes,
And he was on the far right.
Milton Friedman's time. Yeah.
The Republicans generally are on the right.
Yes.
This is pure capitalism.
Yeah.
So, we don't want public enterprises. Public enterprises stealing people's money, misappropriating it.
Yes.
So remove them, zero them.
And America that has always been in charge of who runs the World Bank.
Yeah,
They
appoint
appoint the president. Yes.
And I assume the president controls
The policy direction.
yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we found ourselves trying to understand what is privatization. Yes, you have to sell enterprises. Why? They're inefficient. Really? It's conditionality. If you want to get the next tranche,
Do what we have told.
zero this, zero this, zero that. Then some of us started resisting. Now it became divided.
Okay.
Those who were for, those who were against.
Against. Yes.
Until today. Some of us say public enterprises are okay. Others say they are not. I mean, I don't know if rationalization is a part of this.
So at that time, how were we handling the coffee business?
At that time, the coffee business was under the monopoly of the Coffee Marketing Board. It had been like that before before independence. During colonialism, the Coffee Marketing Board and Lint Marketing Board for cotton had been there as institutions of the economy for a long time.
So people would, yeah.
The coffee, they had a monopoly over the buying and exporting of coffee.
Right.
And it was a big institution. In my article today, which appeared in the Monitor, it's telling the story of how they managed this process. How they started buying coffee on credit.
From the cooperative society.
From the cooperative societies and other buyers or other sellers, coffee growers. So they give them IOU.
Credit notes, so no,
Yeah.
yeah, IOUs actually.
IOU.
Yes.
And then people take these IOU cheats in faith that they will be paid. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. It started to be years.
So the only institution in Uganda that was allowed to sell coffee outside of Uganda, first of all, to buy it locally and sell it outside of Uganda, was the Coffee Marketing Board. So all the revenue that came from the exports would come through Coffee Marketing Board.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. And coffee was the only source of revenue, foreign exchange, for Uganda.
At that time?
95% of government revenue, foreign exchange, came from coffee.
Wow.
So it was like a lifeline. The little bit that we could do on our own
was
in
through
terms of importing vital products that we needed was
from the revenue of coffee.
So of course there was a tax on the coffee.
Yes.
And it's that tax the government would use to do whatever it needed to do in terms of foreign exchange.
Yes.
So I remember one of the World Bank people approaching me. It was a lady hinting that we should privatize the coffee exports.
Right.
And I told her over my dead body.
Wow.
That one will not happen. So they kept quiet. They never brought it up again.
Yes.
So after many months, I heard from other quarters that this issue needs to be looked at. And it took some years. We were struggling, refusing, because everybody saw it. It was a lifeline.
It was what the British called a crown jewel.
Crown jewel.
Yes.
The idea of privatizing the only source of exports was simply unthinkable.
Yes.
Then, to my great surprise, I found myself being told to head a commission to go to Costa Rica and Colombia and Madagascar to see how they are managing their coffee exports. I went with Mr. Chivirango, the former governor of Bank of Uganda. I went with Mr. Kakwano,
was then General Manager of Coffee
Marketing Board. I went to Mr. Turu, who was the head of the Agricultural Secretariat in Bank of Uganda. So we went, we talked to those people. And actually it was when we were in Madagascar that Mr. Kakwano came and said, I want to drink a toast to the new deputy governor.
Oh, wow. The new deputy governor at that point didn't know that he...
I said, who is that? I said, you.
Wow.
I was totally taken off guard.
Yes.
I never expected it.
Yes.
Not even never
occurred to you.
my mind.
Yes.
I was happy with the job I was doing. So we came back, made our report, and I was surprised at how quickly that report was passed by cabinet and became policy. Now we recommended liberalization of coffee exports.
Yes.
And formation of what we are the ones who made that name, Coffee Development Authority.
Yes.
As a mechanism, no longer dealing with buying and selling coffee.
Yes.
But dealing with the quality.
Yes.
Because we found out that all of these countries we visited were concerned making sure that the quality of their coffee is meeting international standards.
So the thinking was, okay, we can allow different players to export, but somebody must oversee and enforce the standards of the product that is going out.
Exactly. So that the standard of our coffee meets world standards.
Yes.
And the reputation is good, so that we continue to enjoy favorable prices in the world market.
Yes.
And compete
Yes.
on the world market.
Yes.
But we also thought it was important to do research on how to improve production and productivity of the coffee
So
plants.
an investment in the science and knowledge
Yes.
of the coffee,
Of the coffee
value
sector.
chain or sector, as we call
Yes,
it. Yes.
So we thought we needed an entity that was to do that.
Yes.
And so we recommended setting up a coffee development authority in place of the coffee marketing board, but leaving the export to the private sector.
The trading,
Trading and so on.
Yes.
Leave it, liberalize it
yes.
to the private sector.
Yes.
So the report was accepted. Soon, I think within a month, we had over 100 exporters licensed
To export coffee.
to export coffee. Came in, but soon we noticed that what we had feared, what I had not seen in Costa Rica,
Yes.
was the dominance of foreigners
Yes.
in the trading and exporting of coffee.
Coffee.
And in my mind, I said, I wonder if this might happen in Uganda.
And it had always been a problem, even during the colonial times, the dominance of foreign players, in the trading and marketing of local commodities.
Yeah, but as far as coffee, it was CMB which was dominating.
Yes.
So it was strictly under
It
government.
It had been a solution to that problem.
Yes. And so when I went to Coffee Marketing Board, to Uganda Commercial Bank, as managing director, I approached the president if he could allow us to use the money from privatization
Yes.
to lend to our
Local traders.
because they were being undercut by foreigners who had access
To
foreign
cheaper
loans,
and cheaper financing.
which were far cheaper.
Yeah.
And he agreed.
Right.
And we took that money and started supporting our own exporters, and they appreciated. But soon, unfortunately, my time in UCB was
Terminated by.
terminated. So I don't know what happened after that.
Right.
But yeah, so that's how we transitioned from Coffee Marketing Board to Uganda Coffee Development Authority and to liberalized coffee trading, exporting.
Yes. So I'm sort of torn between two, and because I like to pursue both questions at once, but I guess let me not be too greedy. Let me start with this issue of the foreigners, the multinationals, and the complexity of the coffee business. Because ultimately what we've figured out is that the 10, it's there, the stats are there, the 10 top exporters are all really just buying operations of big international coffee businesses. The question, I guess, which most people grapple with is, has that excluded us from, and by us I mean, local players, or is it the fact that we're only at the level of production? Do you feel that, or would you argue that that arrangement has forced local players out of the more lucrative parts of the coffee value chain?
I think the fact that you, of course, have to have money to buy coffee.
True, yeah.
For export.
Yes, you have to have the capital.
You have to have capital, you have to have access to loans.
Yes.
In order to buy coffee to export.
Yes.
If you can access that money, you can buy coffee and you can export. No one will stop you.
Yeah.
But if you cannot access that capital, or if you cannot access but so much, you cannot export but so much. And in a liberal environment, those who have the capital will do most of the exporting. And I believe that is what has happened. So many Ugandans you talk to, that I have talked to, they are limited by capital
True.
availability. container of say, a Robusta, screen 15 might be about 300 million.
Yes.
So that's like a minimum. There are other costs.
You need about $500 million shillings
Okay.
to really move a container of coffee.
Okay.
That's about 200 or so $1,000, which is not, and if you're borrowing $500 million shillings at 20% in a commercial bank,
Yeah.
that becomes really, really prohibitive. When the people you're competing with
Yes.
are actually being funded by the Home Office. They are being advanced.
Yeah. And you're competing with them to buy, but your costs are higher, so your profits will be lower.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I guess the next question is, how did you structure, or how did you envisage that the operations of the Uganda Coffee Development Authority then? Because, you know, before that, CMB was earning the income, and so its operational costs were being met. How was UCDA supposed to meet its costs?
Yeah. Before I answer that,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention
Yeah.
that when, in 1987, people started cutting down coffee trees.
Yes, I remember that. Especially, I think in Bugisu it had started a little earlier. Yes.
And in Uganda, they also started cutting them down.
And then also, another thing we forget was that the Civil War, the Bush War, also affected many coffee producing areas, and they abandoned their fields.
That I don't know.
Yes.
So, what that meant was that the little
Crop.
the little foreign exchange we are getting was being threatened
By the cutting of
by
trees.
the cutting of trees. So the alarm in government was very, very big.
Yes.
So much so
Yes.
that Dr. Chigundu, who
Yes.
was the governor of the Bank of Uganda,
Yes.
was ordered to go and start paying farmers. He personally went together with staff of Bank of Uganda to pay farmers and cooperatives the money that was owed by Coffee Marketing Board, so that people stop cutting down their trees. That's how serious it was.
Wow.
So I would say that that was, I think, the point where Coffee Marketing Board's capacity was challenged.
So it became obvious.
It became clear to everyone that there was a problem that had to be solved.
My goodness. So such an intervention, a drastic intervention of the
Yes.
central bank governor,
Yes.
had to go and make
And start paying
paying
farmers.
farmers in order to prevent a catastrophe from
Yes,
happening.
exactly. And then that itself had its own problems,
Yes.
because now when people start carrying boxes of money from the central bank to go and pay cash to farmers,
The,
how do you control
the
that
accountability process,
The accountability process
is zero. Because there's no documentation, there's nothing.
So really we reached our lowest point at that point. Something had to be done.
Yes.
Even those of us who were adamantly favoring Coffee Marketing Board recognized that the situation had reached a limiting point.
Yes.
The second point I need to mention to you is what we call crop finance.
Yes.
In order to solve that problem of cheats,
Yes.
we said we need to make sure that Coffee Marketing Board has adequate financing to pay cash to the
Upfront for the
cooperatives and to the farmers and traders, instead of giving them cheats.
yes.
Now, where we to find that money from to give to Coffee Marketing Board to pay? Now, the Uganda, our macroeconomics
Yes.
became dominated by what we call crop finance. I don't know if you remember.
Yes. I have remembered
The
that phrase.
biggest macroeconomic problem we faced was crop finance.
And how did it manifest itself?
So, whenever the season was, coffee season was coming,
Yes.
we had to come together. Central Bank, Minister of Finance, Minister of Agriculture, all the larger commercial banks,
Yes.
IMF, World Bank, we all find ourselves in one room
To discuss
to discuss.
how and where to find crop finance.
So then the Barclays Bank would say we'll put in 100, another bank would say we'll put in 200, another bank would say 50 million. We'll put all together and see how much we're able to raise. If need be, maybe World Bank would say maybe we can put in so much. So then crop finance would be available to Coffee Marketing Board to buy the crop.
Yes.
But every season, this was now a recurring problem. Then you come back there, it's not enough.
And
We have
yet,
to find more.
and yet, their turnover was not, was it meeting this, or was there even a mechanism to track whether their turnover was?
There were management issues that I probably can't go into. Because when the Coffee Marketing Board bought coffee and sold it,
Yes.
they received the foreign exchange,
Yes.
which they were supposed to pass on to the Bank of Uganda.
Yes.
But they would first put it in their own account in London
Oh my.
or New York, wherever, and then they would decide when to turn it over to the Bank of Uganda. So the Bank of Uganda was so more or less at their
Mercy.
mercy.
Especially
Technically-
because the bankings were happening in a foreign jurisdiction.
Bank of Uganda was technically here in Uganda, nobody was allowed to touch foreign exchange.
I remember that, yeah.
The 1964 Foreign Exchange Control Act forbid.
It was a crime to be found with foreign
with foreign exchange.
In fact, while you were away in America in exile, it's part of the, if you were found with foreign currency, you're a gorilla. Guerrilla meaning you were involved with rebellion and guerrilla activities. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So crop finance, as Ugandans
was
say,
the biggest macroeconomic problem we are dealing with. You asked me between 86 to 90.
Yes.
That was the biggest problem we were dealing with. How to find money to pay for our coffee so that we can have foreign exchange. Because it was the only revenue, foreign exchange revenue source. The rest was donors, donations, and borrowings. So we managed that until by the time we recommended liberalization, we were actually exhausted.
you had run out of runway, as guys.
We were exhausted. We could never find enough foreign exchange, crop finance. And of course, you are at the mercy of the banks and so on. When they give you so much money, they tell you how much you have to pay in interest.
Yes,
Yeah, and so it was really hard.
yes.
So we liberalized. We said, let's let the market manage this. Then perhaps another point I should mention
Yes.
is that the percentage of the coffee price that the farmer would get
Yes.
was estimated at about 70% of the actual value of the coffee crop.
Yeah.
So 30% was going to Coffee Marketing Board to meet its own
Operational costs.
which
Yes.
was a bit high.
Yeah.
And after liberalization, that figure dropped to about 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what mechanism and provision did you put in place or did you recommend for the regulatory role that UCDA was being brought into and for the scientists?
The major recommendation, because it was basically quality control and research institution.
Yes.
So our main concern was how do we make sure that it is able to sustain itself despite whatever may be going on, because this was a time when the government didn't have money.
Yes.
So based on our findings in the other countries we visited,
Yes.
we recommended what we called assess. A small percentage on the export. Now we are going from 20% on exports
Yes.
to 1%,
Yes.
just to cover the costs
Of this
of
activity, UCDA.
So we thought this was small enough or big enough, I don't know how you want to look at it, to meet its expenses. We didn't want it to start struggling and failing because I couldn't get
Operational funding.
allocations from
The Treasury.
the Treasury.
Yes.
That's what we recommended, and it was accepted, and it seemed to work well.
Many people have asked me, because we've been discussing this issue, and the word cess keeps coming up. What is cess?
It's basically a service charge for the exporters, so that the Coffee Marketing Board, when you are going to export coffee, you have to, of course, you must have an export license.
Yes.
They have to come and check your coffee,
Yes.
make sure it meets the standards,
Yes.
and issue a quality certificate.
Yes.
And that quality certificate is very important,
Yes.
because that's how the
Market.
foreigner
Yes.
buyer is assured
That the crop
that
which
the
is
crop
leaving.
which is receiving, he's going to receive, meets global standards of quality.
Exactly.
Because if the quality controller
Yes.
fails in that job,
Yes.
and the foreigners begin to detect a failure,
Yes.
then I don't know how to say it in English,
Yes. So you will have no market,
you have no market.
or the prices collapse, and then you get unscrupulous buyers who will really drive down the value.
Yeah. So
Yes.
because when you are trying to export, I think originally we are supposed to get even a quality certification from ICO, International Coffee Organization.
Yes.
But now some people ask for it, you tell them no. For us, our quality regulator is
Yeah, so we have actually reached a point where UCDA's own certification. In fact, that was the justification that was given for withdrawing from ICO, because when we
are able to do it
ourselves, so we don't need their
we
certifications.
don't need their certification.
Yes.
So, but the moment that there is a failure of trust
Yeah.
in the capacity of your regulator, I think the country will have a problem.
And yet that trust is built over a long period.
It's over a long period of time.
It's not just...
It's not created in a day.
So questions will be asked if we are beginning to dismantle the only regulator we have who has a reputation. Isn't that going to create questions in the market?
Well, because now you have to persuade the buyers. Somehow, I don't know how you do it other than practically. Because for the buyer, he pays, he issues a letter of credit.
Yes. Based on
a pre-shipment sample,
and
which you have sent, which has been certified by your phytosanitary authority and by quality regulator, which is UCDA.
Yes.
Then when they receive this pre-shipment sample, it's okay. They expect that now the coffee that you send will be
the same standard and quality. And if your export takes place and it is certified by UCDA, the people on the other side assume it is in accordance with the original sample that was sent.
Yes. If it is not, then I'm afraid buyers will resort to other countries.
So, again, as somebody who was involved with the policy debates and the method of these debates and arriving and building consensus, in light of the current controversy, what would be, you think, an ideal way of handling? So first of all, have we done an assessment of the performance of UCDA? as to whether one, is it still fit for purpose? Does it need to be changed? Has the situation changed? But one of the other things that came up, of course, is that the cess that had been set was increased to 2%, and then its collection was taken to the Treasury.
Yes.
And now UCDA has to line up along with other people for money from the Treasury. And then the argument is that it is a cost on the Treasury, but it's generating its own income.
Right. Because we have to recognize that this coffee is of the farmers.
Yes.
They are the ones generating the product, the commodity, and the charge is a service charge really by those who are exporting and managing the exportation, so that to make sure that the farmers have a good market and a good price for their product. It's not the government which is going in its pocket to pay. It's this money, the money is coming from the money that's going to the farmers.
Yes.
So if a kilogram costs $4.50,
Yes.
and you take 10 cents of that as a cess, then it means that now $4.40 is remaining to go to the exporters and to the farmers.
Yes.
You're not asking government
to raise resources from elsewhere in order to fund this.
No, not at all.
So it's actually not a cost to the Treasury.
No, it's a service charge.
And it's, I think,
But the service charge is coming from the coffee, the commodity itself, which is being exported.
And then, so the distortion, I guess, is coming from the fact that that process was taken away from UCDA into the Treasury. So it appears as if, yes, there is money coming from the Treasury to fund UCDA, but actually UCDA is self-funding.
Well, there was a coffee conference, I think, for African countries some time back. And I was audacious.
as if that is new to you, but
to say, why don't you return the coffee export tax?
Yes.
And so, if the government feels that it needs money from coffee, why doesn't it just reintroduce the
An
coffee
export
export?
tax.
Doesn't have to hide behind cess.
Yes.
Just say from now onwards, we were putting a tax of so much on the coffee, and the government will have revenue. Frank, I have to admit
Yes.
that we removed it under the influence of this liberalization
Argument.
conditionalities and arguments. Don't touch the private sector and so on. But I think the case for introducing the coffee exports tax can be debated. You don't have to hide.
So just say that, okay, you guys are doing this business, you're going to pay X for this service, this direct service we offer you to make yourselves marketable. In other words, 1 or 2%. In other words, for us to develop the planting materials, the science, certification, all of those activities, and this money will go to the regulator. Me, as the government of Uganda, I am, for all the other services I offer you, roads, security, this and that and the other, you will pay 10% as tax, or whatever percentage.
Yeah, whatever percent. Because already, I think by increasing to 2%, already are going far beyond what we anticipated.
Yes.
Because the volume of coffee has increased.
Actually, somebody has argued that with 1%, it was going to be 40 million or whatever figure it is. With 2%, the cost of UCDA didn't double.
No.
So that means...
So in my mind, if in my mind as someone who participated in forming UCDA,
Yes.
I would say to cut it from 1% down to maybe 0.5.
Yes.
Or even less.
Yes.
Because the purpose is not for UCDA to make money.
It's not a profit.
It's not a profit entity.
It's to meet the service costs
Exactly.
involved.
Exactly.
So whether it's for the scientists or for the quality control or for the certification.
Yes. So if the purpose is to ensure that our coffee quality is maintained and reputation is maintained, and therefore we can get good prices for our coffee, just make sure that UCDA is able to meet the costs it needs in order to maintain a high quality of service. And also set up maybe a system for inspecting it and
supervising its
activities. Maybe that's what the Minister of Agriculture should be doing.
But it has a board.
And that's why you have a board. You should check, make sure the board is also doing its work, and so on and so forth.
And then, as you say, let's have a discussion. Government, beyond just the work of UCDA, is facilitating the coffee trade in other ways. Like we said, if the infrastructure costs of exporting coffee, the security costs, and whatever other auxiliary costs that you meet through a tax.
Yeah,
and it may not necessarily be specific.
Let me make one thing very clear.
Yes.
Government has been very, very proactive in increasing coffee production.
Yes. Do you want to explain a bit more how it has done that?
Yes. In 2015,
yes,
I was asked to head the Prime Minister's delivery unit,
yes,
whose purpose was to increase service, to improve service
delivery. Yes.
And the first order I received from the Prime Minister,
yes,
was a letter from the President,
yes,
a directive,
yes,
to Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Finance, Prime Minister's Office, and others, to increase coffee production from 3 million bags to 20 million bags by 2020.
Yes.
When I received that directive in October 2015,
yes,
I investigated and found nothing had been done.
Yes.
In 1 year.
Yes.
Of that directive.
Yes.
When the Prime Minister gave it to us, the delivery unit, we took it as a priority.
Yes.
And we were able to organize what we call a lab, a stakeholder consultative process.
Yes.
With the help of McKinsey & Company, which is a global consulting firm.
Yes.
And we drew up a compendium or roadmap.
Yes.
For increasing
the production
of coffee.
Yes.
We, after all of this research and sitting together with stakeholders, took several months. We came up with a proposal that could be done by 2030.
Yes.
The President said no, do it by 2025. We said fine. So, but point is that production. I had done research myself previously.
Yes. Of
coffee exports of Uganda since 1950.
Yes.
And I had found that in every decade, 5 decades over which I did the research, the average
growth,
the average export per year.
Yes.
In every decade, all these decades, was always 3 million bags per annum. So even despite the liberalization, I had anticipated that after liberalization,
it would be
a huge increase.
Yes.
I was surprised that they had not been.
Yes.
So the question was why? Why has annual production remained at this figure for so long? And can we get out of this, go beyond? At some years they had gone to 4.3 million, but then to go back 3.5, sometimes even below.
It will be 2.8, I think, I remember.
Yeah, 2.8 and so on.
Yeah.
This figure is in my book for those who are interested on advancing the Ugandan economy.
Okay, all right. Good, be gone.
Is it take advantage?
Is it? Yeah, no, it's fine. Is it there at Aristoc?
We're hoping to put out a new edition soon.
Yeah. It will be good to put that in circulation, and I'm happy to publicize that for people to read, because I think one of the shortages of public debate is the lack of knowledge. Never mind information, just the lack of knowledge.
The lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So we really drove that drive.
Yes.
Together with the other stakeholders.
Yes.
Operation Wealth Creation and so on.
Yes.
Of providing free seedlings
Yes.
to farmers.
Yes.
But Mr. Kabushenga,
Yes.
the battle that the Prime Minister put on to force, I'm sorry to use the word force, but maybe it's a wrong word, but for Minister of Finance provide additional money for seedlings,
Yes.
so that we could tell the nursery operators
To supply.
to go ahead and create additional, because you
Seedling.
don't start producing seedlings when you don't know that you're going to have a market for
That's
them.
true. You don't know if you're going to sell.
No. So we had to first have the money committed, then go to the nursery operators, say, we'll buy so many seedlings, go ahead and produce. That was a big, big thing.
Yeah.
But you know, pressure, and the Minister of Finance finally yielded, provided additional money, and seedlings were distributed. Of course, there were some elements of corruption, people saying they have sold seedlings they have not sold, and so on.
Yeah.
But we found ways of limiting that by making sure that we count the number of holes dug first
Yes.
before we send the seedlings.
To the person who is going to.
So now we have got out of the 3 million bag limit.
Yes.
Now I think we're talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10
Yes.
million. I think it's on the way.
Yes.
So there's a big boost. So government has definitely had a positive influence in increasing
The
the
production.
quantity of coffee produced
Produced.
in Uganda.
Yes.
And that's why we are number one. Instead of being number 2 after Ethiopia in Africa, we are now number 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess now the next challenge is how do you, as somebody who was involved in this, how do you build consensus and for the sector to work together? Because I think what has happened, there's been a lot of friction. And how do you, and by friction I mean, some, policy disagreements of how we should proceed. And the latest one is over the dismantling of UCDAs. People have taken very public positions, especially key stakeholders are saying we need the organization. It can be reformed, but it is a necessary part of our business. And then on the other side, in government is saying, no, this is not necessary, take it back to the Ministry of Agriculture. So yesterday, I was talking to Honorable Nandala Mafabi, and I mentioned this. He said, in a context where public trust has been eroded because of, all of this news about corruption and all of that stuff, you have an erosion of public trust, especially in ministries. How do you approach this issue to say, please, can we create a way forward that addresses people's fears, people's trust issues, so that we don't end up with cutting trees again? Because it's very possible that people could just say, no, this we're going down a bad road, let's just cut the trees, let's go and plant Hass avocado, nobody will disturb us, we move on. I mean, we've seen it with the collapse in the prices of tea, and now people are uprooting their tea and actually going into coffee, that's ironically. As somebody who's been involved in these debates, in terms of approach, what's the best way to achieve a consensus and a way forward, where you have friction and division?
Thank you very much for that question. At my age and experience, having been not only a professor, but also a deputy governor and finance minister.
Exactly, yes.
When the Prime Minister said, as head of the delivery unit, I should go for training.
In what?
It was like, really? I said, I don't think I have time to. He said, no, you go. So I went to UK.
Yes.
For training in service delivery.
Yes.
And there's an organization called Deliver Associates.
Yes.
And they are the ones who later on put us in touch with McKinsey and Company. When we tried to deal with this directive of increasing coffee production.
Yes.
So I learned about this concept of a lab. Now, normally when you think of a lab, you think of test
People,
tubes.
yes, and the people in white coats.
Now I said, what is a lab? And McKinsey said it is a stakeholder consultative process where you bring the knowledge together from the people who have a vested interest, who are participating, who are practicing, who are benefiting from a sector. They have more interest in this sector than anybody else. If you want to know, to get true knowledge, you have to call these people together. The initial 3-day consultative process we held, the lecturers from Makerere and professors were attending, as well as the stakeholders. The lecturers spoke the first day. They never spoke again. Because we are dealing with the people who
Are practicing.
hands-on every
Actual.
day.
Yes.
They are growing coffee, they are processing coffee, they are drying coffee, they are
trading it.
transporting, this is their life.
Yes.
There's no one who has more knowledge than these people, the stakeholders.
Yes.
So if you are truly interested in a sector, in industry, I don't think there is a better way to learn than to bring these stakeholders together. This is what these consultants call the lab. Basically, it's a consultative process involving the stakeholders. We went to Chigo for 6 days, day and night, trying to come up with this roadmap for implementing the coffee, increase of coffee production. And the amazing thing is, these people are not bored, they are not asking to go away. In fact, they wanted to go on, but we didn't have enough money to keep going.
Yes.
And you can go and check, the roadmap is there.
Yes, I've actually read it.
And
very good document.
It's amazing. Of course, implementation is not easy, it's difficult. But in order to implement, you have to start being on the right road.
Yes.
If you're on the wrong road, implementation will not help. You'll be implementing the wrong thing, you'll be going in the wrong direction.
Yes.
But if you have all this knowledge come together to point the best way forward, I think you have the best chance of coming up with the right policy.
Yeah.
That's something that I learned and that I value very much.
The other issue that always comes up, there's two of them, and I think, but I'll start with this one, is that the farmer, you hear the statements, never that the farmer is being cheated out of the value. And what's always quoted is the final consumer price in the coffee market, that a kilo is going for $14 of roasted coffee, and yet the farmer here is getting $3 to $4. That's unfair. What would you think would put, of course I've discussed that with someone else and the mathematics is slightly different. You need 3 kilos of green beans to get a kilo of roasted beans. So that already means that a farmer is getting at least $12 out of the 14 that the other one is getting. The question is, how can we empower and create advantage for the broad majority of Ugandans where they are? Because most of them are really in production and small-scale trading. Are there ways we can empower them in a way that puts them in a stronger bargaining position?
I have to confess that I honestly don't know. My view, the view we took when I was in the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, was mainly to increase the productivity
Yes.
per tree.
Yes, 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 yes.
And some of our people went to Vietnam. They found that the average production per tree per annum is like, I think, 3 kilograms. And ours was that time less than a kilogram.
It's actually, the average is 500 grams.
0.5. So we thought that one of the best ways we can help our people
Yes.
is to increase the quality of inputs, fertilizers and manure and what have you, rain or water, because I think one of the lessons from Vietnam was that water, for them, water is even more important
Yes.
than fertilizer.
Yes.
And indeed, what we have seen is that without water, our productivity is very low.
In fact, actually, when there are good rains, we are smiling to the market because the volumes are visibly.
You're a coffee farmer.
I am a coffee
So
farmer.
you know
So
what you're talking
exactly. I mean, we had very good rains that started in October of last year and didn't end until around February. And then, so the June harvests were really, really good. Yes.
So I think that if whatever method we can use to cost effectively avail water to the farmers, because I went to 1 acre farm here in Entebbe,
Yes.
Narima.
Naruimas, Emas, yes.
And I found a Robusta coffee tree there. Only one.
Yes.
But she told us that she gets 25 kilograms of coffee from that. I said, is that possible?
Yeah.
She said, yes. I still don't believe it, but
Yeah,
even if it is 10,
it's water. But you
and,
see,
and urea.
yes.
you
But she
know.
has one tree. If you're dealing with 30,000 like me, you can't replicate it.
You can't replicate it. But
Yes.
the point is,
Yeah,
we
know
we
what
can go from 0.5 of a kilogram.
to at least 3.
That is 2, 3. That alone, if you have an acre, you have 450 or 500 trees, and you multiply by 3 times, your income definitely increases tremendously.
Yes.
And one of the fundamentals of a roadmap for coffee was what we call structured demand. Structured demand was referring to the growth that is taking place in the non-traditional
Coffee
coffee
consuming.
consumers like China. And that if we can make some agreements to supply them, because the rate of consumption is growing rapidly, faster than the rest of the world, then this could, of course, we didn't want to increase coffee production when there's no market.
Market, yeah, that's correct.
The reason we went into it wholeheartedly was because we are assured that demand for coffee is growing and will not have a problem with the market.
Yes.
And indeed, as you can see, prices at an all-time high.
Yes.
Partly because of the reduction in production in Vietnam, because of the weather, the dry,
Yes.
talking about water,
Yes, the dry spell.
the dry spell, but also because of the increase.
No, actually, there was an article in Bloomberg which linked the increase in demand for Robusta with increased consumption of soluble coffee in the consuming markets as a result of changed habits from the lockdown that have been carried forward. Yes, and an increasingly positive view of coffee in health terms, because before there was the perception that coffee was an unhealthy drink, which was causing heart problems and so on. I think the science is now changing and saying actually it has very healthy properties as an antioxidant. So that has played into the consumption growth as well. Yeah.
So I think the increased demand, and if we can increase the quality of inputs,
Yes.
because also the quality of inputs has been a big problem.
Yes.
When we were doing the roadmap, at that time, that's 2017,
Yes.
40% of inputs
Were fake.
were fake.
Yes.
So with all due respect to Mr. Kabushenga,
Yes.
wouldn't the first prerequisite or first priority of the Minister of Agriculture be to reduce this fake input?
Regulate the import of
Regulate
inputs.
effectively the inputs. This would greatly
Improve productivity.
improve productivity and incomes
Hmm.
for coffee farmers. But you know, I buy inputs, I spray, nothing
Nothing
happens.
happens. Yes.
Then they say you spray again, I spray again. Now, I've been dealing with
Twig borer.
yes,
Twig borer is finishing us because we are getting, and the more you use the fake, the more resistant.
they become.
Yes.
So I think that that would be really an important place for where the farmer needs assistance.
Yeah.
Inputs, quality of inputs,
Mm.
water,
Mm.
and then of course other areas of processing and so on.
Yeah.
But let's start with increasing yield per tree.
Mm.
Because even if I have half an acre and I have 100 trees or 200, if the input is 2, 3, 4, 5 kilograms,
I mean, there's no reason why somebody with 100 trees, even an acre, cannot have the productivity of Naluima. Because the trees are few, as long as they know the science
Yes.
and know how to apply it,
Yes.
urea is available. They have goats, they have chicken, they have cows.
yes,
Water over 100 trees is feasible.
it's feasible.
You know, you can draw it, and so it's really that support. In fact, one of the criticisms is that agronomy support from the Ministry of Agriculture is non-existent, and so that's where it's affected a low productivity. The final question, because I know you've got to go, is how do we, in terms of increasing the demand, I don't know if this was contained in the plan, the roadmap. What can be done to improve visibility in the market and perceptions of Uganda's coffee? How can we, because one of the things the public says is, you know, we travel, we don't find Ugandan coffee on the shelves. Ugandan coffee is nowhere to be seen. When all other African countries, what kind of initiative, or you think, what can be done to achieve that?
I have to admit I'm not an
Yeah.
expert on marketing.
Yes.
That has always been one of my, I did business administration and I found marketing to be the hardest course.
It's not surprising. Finance people and marketing people are always at odds. Yes.
So I'm not sure I can give a satisfactory answer to the marketing issue. They tell us, the people in the lab emphasized branding, that we need to brand our coffee, but frankly, I don't know how that is done.
Okay, so then let me go to your area where you're an expert. One of the other issues is affordable financing, patient capital. I mean, I need to pay workers now. It costs me every 2 weeks about 3 to 4 million shillings just for the harvest. Forget the other labor needs. But
At least where you're harvesting, now I'm paying for weeding,
yeah, there you go.
but no harvesting.
I was given an interesting model that I have used this season about weeding, and it has really brought down my cost of weeding, and I can share it with you.
Yeah, I
Basically.
need to come and see.
Yes. So, as a finance man, what do you think can be or should be put in place for? I think the word, I'm just borrowing a word because, for want of a better word, what they call patient capital. The commercial banks, they will only be able to finance traders because traders will go and buy and sell tomorrow, and the period, the risk is short. But for me, as a farmer, I'm going to need financing for a slightly longer period, maybe my securitization. So what do you see as possibilities? How can we think differently or more creative in terms of affordable finance?
When I became Minister of Finance, the first directive I got was to bring a paper on microfinance, which we did, and proposed the circles. It was adopted. And my latest figure I have from the PSST last year, but there are now 33,000 circles. But the problem that I see now is that the regulatory authority is being also rationalized into the Ministry of Finance. And yet you cannot have somebody receiving people's money and you don't have a mechanism for making sure they don't steal that money.
Exactly.
This problem has always been there for cooperatives, people in charge stealing money and this failing the cooperatives. So it's critical when it comes to finance that the majority of our people, the figures I have seen, I think commercial banks only give out 13% of the loans of the people.
Yes.
The rest are being at the informal level, circle level,
Yes.
small sector. So we have no choice but to make sure that this sector of small people, who are the majority of our people, have an effective mechanism for saving their money and borrowing that money.
And that it's protected.
It's protected.
By people who have a professional skill and responsibility to do that.
Yes, and who are themselves are being watched and we have a board and then the Ministry of Finance is making sure the board is operating like NSSF.
Yes.
You have a board, but Ministry of Finance is the one who appoints the board.
And is a guarantor.
As a guarantor. So I believe that if we are really, genuinely interested in rescuing our people from poverty, then we have to make sure that we at least give them confidence that the little money they are saving is safe. And that they can we should even put a deposit protection fund for the small farm, just as you have for the big banks. Why do we discriminate against the small ones, our people?
Who are the majority, actually?
Who are the majority? You give deposit protection for the big banks, so I have confidence. If I put my money in the big bank, if it fails, I will get my money back, at least up to 10 million. But if I have 10,000 in the village, for me that's a lot of money.
It's more than 10 million will be for a big depositor.
Yes, I don't want tomorrow tell me that the bank is bankrupt. I'm sorry.
The ruin there.
The ruin there is enormous. And it has happened to many, many circles because there was a lack of a regulatory agency. By the time the regulatory agency was put in 2016, we had started circles much earlier, 10 years earlier. And people really, including in my own village, the circles went bankrupt. So I think that surely financial inclusion is not feasible without effective, efficient regulatory mechanism. And I'm arguing that this is a very effective way to increase jobs for our people, because if you have 4,000 or 5,000 people in the parish, and there is at least a regulator who is committed to that circle there, you are talking lots of jobs. Make sure that they are, because the problem is not money, the problem is production.
Yeah.
But we think that the problem of the economy is money.
It's not.
The problem of the economy is production.
Producing something sellable.
Yes.
In quantities that are commercially viable.
Services that are effective and helpful.
Yes.
But now, and the figures we have at the regulatory system actually is able to get service charges that are enough to sustain it and even to give additional to the government.
So you kill it by transferring it back to a ministry which is focused on many other things.
Yes, too many other things. It's not specialized.
Yes.
It doesn't have adequate information knowledge. So that would be my answer to your question. Yeah. That let us make sure that we build the financial sector among our people, financial inclusion in an effective way.
What would be your last word to coffee people? What would you say to them?
Trust in God. Trust in God, and He will help us.
Right.
Yeah.
but also be vigilant in looking after the crop and making sure that quality is maintained at the farm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Dr. Ezra Suruma, thank you very much for the time you have accorded us, and we truly appreciate your insights, knowledge, and perspective.
Thank you very much.
And you have a good evening.
And same to you, sir.
Good, good. Thank you.